Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of January 3rd, 2018. The first thing we do this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. The first order of business this evening is the election of the chairman of the Warren County School Board. At this time, I will accept nominations.
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, we speak quite often about the need for continuity in our staff and in our programs. I think this is important for our board as well. Ms. Bauer has led this board very positively and exceptionally, and I feel we should maintain that momentum. At this time, I'm privileged to nominate Mrs. Kathy Bauer as chairman of the Warren County School Board for the 2018 school year, or 2018 year.
Is there a second? Second. I have a nomination of Mrs. Bauer for the chairman of the Warren County School Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you.
All right. I can go ahead and do the
Sure.
vice chair. The next order of business is the election of the vice chairman of the Warren County School Board. I will accept nominations for that position.
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, in the spirit of continuity again, and because of his knowledge and experience, I'd like to nominate Mr. C. Douglas Rosen as vice chair for the 2018 school year.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. We have the nomination of Mr. Rosen and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Rosen.
Thank you.
I pass the gavel.
Okay, thank you. I thank you all for your vote of confidence and your support, especially in keeping me straight.
And I'll be, again, I hope on the building committee to
Yeah.
keep those in charge of construction around here in check.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is to accept or modify the agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion we accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Community participation. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and
Yes, ma'am. My name is Russell Sears. I'm a parent at E. Wilson. I'm also a retired Army officer, and I've been a E. Wilson parent for 9 years. And over the last years, we've found problems coming up in E. Wilson. We've addressed it according with the policy letter KL-R, gone through the principal, gone through Mr. Drescher, Lisa. We've gone through our representative, and we still have seen no action in the schools that is causing some really disturbing problems that are going on in E. Wilson to change. Now, we have made a written request to our representative for listing some of the problems at the school, and with expectation that on the agenda today, we would see a discussion on behavior. But instead, what we see on the agenda is a discussion of VTSS from the Committee on Behavior and Attendance, which I find is very disturbing. When we look at the problems that are going on within our community and with the school, at E. Wilson in particular, that's all I can speak to. But we're looking at attendance as our number one priority as the Committee on VTSS for Behavior and Attendance. I find that disturbing. And the fact that we're not discussing, even though we put in a written complaint, we're not discussing behavior at E. Wilson. But what I would ask is, since the last school board, that Ms. McEathern has visited E. Wilson, and we've had an outside representative from the Virginia Department of Education, Miss Hart, I can't remember her first name, but Ms. Hart has come from the Virginia Department of Education, has sit down with our teachers at E. Wilson and done a climate survey. And I would ask if we are not going to discuss E. Wilson in particular, or behavior issues within our school systems, that Ms. McEthron or Mr. Drescher discuss what you saw at E. Wilson and what that outside representative saw at when doing those climate surveys, if that'd be okay.
We probably won't get back to you tonight, or do you?
I hadn't planned on that.
Okay, because this is the first we've heard you speak to us on this, but someone will follow up.
Okay. And again, we did provide a written complaint to the school board in accordance with your own regulations. That should have been shared with you, Madam Chairwoman. And so it wasn't. Understand, I have asked for a copy of the report through the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And so hopefully I'll get that from the superintendent or his representative.
Yeah, and I believe the staff has been following up and,
Okay.
and working.
And again, for transparency, and because there are a number of concerned parents who have been to the superintendent, and just a myriad who have been to the principal, that transparency to get that information out there so we can help. Again, I volunteered to the principal, I volunteered to Lisa, I volunteered to Greg, anything I can do to help. But it's just getting to the point, we're 4 months later, and we're just seeing assaults and just language that would make us all blush, and things that would, if we were doing them, would cause a hostile environment within the school. Yet, because the children are doing that, we're not doing anything, and teachers are being told there's nothing they can do. And to me, administrators should never use those terms, and those are the terms that are being used. So again, I understand this is the first time some of you have heard about it, and I just wanted to make for the record the point that we really need to address. And I think there are others in the audience besides at E. Wilson, but I think, E. Wilson really needs to be addressed.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam
thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Sears. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, thank you. Appointments. Appointment of clerk of the Warren County School Board. Mr. Drescher?
I would like to recommend that Rob Valentine continues as the clerk of the Warren County School Board.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of having Mr. Valentine serve as clerk? Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Appointment of deputy clerk of the Warren County School Board.
I would make the recommendation that Buck Smith continues in his role as deputy clerk of the Warren County School Board.
Is there a motion for that?
I would move that Buck Smith be appointed as deputy clerk of the Warren County School Board for a term beginning January 1st, 2018, and ending December 31st, 2018.
Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appointment of school board representative on the Mountain Vista Governor School Board. I have been serving. I teach this semester on Thursdays at Lord Fairfax, so if I continue to serve, I will be missing a few meetings. However, if there's anyone else who would like to take that position, or, I think most of our problems are work schedules, and
I mean, I can step up and,
it would be for the year.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, you would be willing to do that? Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that Donna McEthron be appointed as Warren County School Board Representative on the Mountain Vista Governor's School Board for the calendar year 2018.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. McEthron. Mr. Drescher will get you all up to date on that.
Like plan.
Appointment of 2 building committee representatives. I think currently, I have been serving and Mr. Rosen has been serving, but I think Mr. Williams is interested in.
I'll be more than glad to help.
Mr. Rosen, you're still interested?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I would move that Arnold Williams Jr. and Doug Rosen be appointed to the 2018 Warren County School Board as Warren County School Board representatives on the Building Committee.
For a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Appointment of designee to attend meetings of the school board in the absence of the division superintendent. Mr. Drescher, you want,
I would make the recommendation that Melody Shepherd does that in my absence.
okay. You're willing to do that? Is there a motion?
Make a motion. I make a
Madam-
sorry, go ahead.
Well, Madam Chairman, I would move that Melody A. Shepherd be appointed as designee of the superintendent to attend meetings of the school board in the absence or inability of the superintendent to attend for the period of January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that the consent agenda be accepted as written.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're speeding right along here. Reports, Virginia Tiered System of Supports, Mr. Fox.
Good evening. Not quite as handsome as Mr. Fox, but I'm going to
Much
start it out.
prettier.
We just wanted to take an opportunity to update you all a little bit on, we've talked about VTSS, or the Virginia Tiered System of Supports, and some of the things that we've been doing, and Mr. Fox and I will speak instructionally, some things that are happening in regard to that. So VTSS isn't a thing. It's the way that we do business throughout the school system, having a consistent decision-making process and basing our decisions on data, and the focus being on what we call Tier 1, which is the support that every student gets every single day. So again, focusing at this point on instruction. For the past year and a half, the large VTSS committee, that picture, we focused primarily on attendance and on instruction. So that's just a little recap of VTSS and what that means when we talk about it. So specifically, Tier 1 instruction, which again is what we expect to see happening every day in every classroom in regards to instruction. And we have what's called a Tier 1 checklist, and that's how we define for our teachers and administrators what the expectations are for that core instruction in the classroom. Would you mind pulling that up for me, Mr. Grant? This is what our Tier 1 instruction checklist looks like, and essentially it defines pretty much any aspect of classroom instruction that you can think of. We have outlined on this particular form. So it talks about the objectives of the lesson, it talks about classroom management procedures, it talks about student engagement, and it is all on this little form right here. You can minimize that for now. And the most important part, how this document was created, really is the process. And that was worked through with the instruction subcommittee of the VTSS committee, and that includes our instructional coaches, which we have 6 instructional coaches at the elementary level, administrators from elementary, middle, and high schools, and then the instructional resource team members as well. Those are the people who worked at developing this checklist. And we began in the spring of 2017, and our latest draft that you all just saw was completed the fall of this year, but we already know things that we need to change and add to it. So what we did is we compiled all of the existing forms and checklists that were being used by administrators and those of us at the division level who support instruction, and combine those into one document. We agreed upon one document that everyone would use, and we shared that with all of the division leadership and with the principals. And they committed to using this particular document throughout the division. So administrators, IRT members, instructional coaches are in and out of classrooms every day. And we do what we call walkthroughs. So that's a 10 to 15-minute visit into a classroom to see, what's happening, how things are going. And everyone had a different way that they did that. Some had checklists, some just left notes behind to give teacher feedback. And so what we agreed upon with this form is this is what we would be looking for when we did those walkthroughs. It's certainly not that we expect to see everything that's on that checklist every time that we come in, because again, we're just staying for a 10 to 15-minute period of time. But it does define what instruction in any classroom in Warren County should look like. And the process and the document that we created has been shared across the state at the VTSS, several of the VTSS conferences that we've attended. They use our checklist as a model, and then again, the process that we went through and the commitment that we got from the division to use this particular checklist. And the ways that we use it, it's to outline the instructional expectations for all of us and to gauge the level that our instructional expectations are being implemented. Again, this is elementary, middle, and high school. And it also provides teachers feedback on their instruction. And there's actually a component, the checklist is in a Google form, so anyone who goes in and has access to that form, and when they do a walkthrough in a classroom, just enters that right into this Google form, and that will generate an immediate email to the teacher being observed that shows what was seen and any comments that the observer might have. So they get that immediate feedback. And then this also helps us to develop to determine what our professional development needs are as well. I know I sped through that. Do you have any questions about?
What's the expectation or what's the goal? Every teacher at least once, every teacher once a quarter, every teacher once a semester?
We have not set a specific goal when it comes to doing walkthroughs. Any of the numbers that you threw out there would definitely be low. We expect our administrators, and as IRT, it's what our responsibility is to be in classrooms as much as possible. Most definitely, someone should be in and out of teachers' classrooms at least once a 9 weeks. But at this point in time, we are in teachers' classrooms between ourselves, between coaches, and between administrators much more frequently than that. And principals often, when they do walkthroughs, they'll do several with particular teachers and use that as a piece of the information for when they go in to do formal observations as well. So they've been in numerous times and been able to see instruction at different times of the day and for different periods of time. So they're able to use that information as well.
You mentioned that you had 6 instructional coaches and they were all elementary.
Yes.
Do you not have a need for middle or high school coaches also?
We most definitely have a need. They are all 6 Title I funded positions. So our elementary schools being the Title I schools, that's where the funding for those positions, 4 literacy coaches and 2 math coaches,
Okay.
are fully funded with Title I funds. So if that money is not available, then those positions won't be.
Going to happen.
No.
Okay. The format is the same for elementary, middle, and high? You don't see a need to?
We met, and like I said, we've talked to principals, assistant principals, and then instructional resource team across all 3 levels. And as we developed, we actually started developing with an elementary group, a middle school, and a high school group. And as we developed the first template, the elementary group, we developed the first draft, the first template. It was clear that they were things we expected to see in every classroom regardless of the grade level. So what is there is what we would expect to see. Now, it may look a little bit different, a classroom of 5-year-olds, how the routines and procedures look in that classroom may look different than what it is in a senior government class, but they're still present, and the expectation is that they are. So it's all still, it fits to each of those grade levels.
When you go to visit a class and the person leaves feedback, how soon before they follow up again?
It depends. It depends on some of it depends on the purpose for which the walkthrough is being done. So if it's a walkthrough, let's say the IRT is coming and doing walkthroughs in a particular grade level at a school. Just as additional, information, additional eyes on how things are going. Depending upon what the principal at that building may want, maybe there are concerns, or we're not concerns, we're trying to figure out the best professional development for a particular group of teachers for a school, a grade level, a content area, then the follow-up might be in that nature, that we're providing professional development. This is the data that we saw. 20 walkthroughs were done in this particular grade level over the period of 3 months, and out of the things we were looking for, this is how frequently we saw particular things. So that might lead then to professional development and so forth. We also have induction coaches in all of our buildings, and they're the people who work with our new teachers. So that's another, they use this checklist, the same checklist as well. So their follow-up would be much more individualized based on the new teachers and what those new teachers might need.
I have a question for you. I don't know if you can hear me. The follow-up, how quickly is it returned, and how is it returned? Is it returned just via an email, or is there a sit-down where it's one-on-one?
Every teacher will get the feedback, the email feedback, and that is immediate. So they come in, and as long as the person who's doing the walkthrough is entering it electronically as they go, now some of us are still old school and we print out our paper and we make our notes and then we go in and fill in the form. But the expectation is within 24 hours of the person who's been into the classroom to do the walkthrough, within 24 hours that teacher will have received feedback via email. Now again, it depends whether or not we're going to have a sit down with a teacher. The teachers are going to receive that email and they can reply to the person who sent that to say, hey, I'd really love to sit down and talk with you more about what you saw, and anyone who is involved in any kind of walkthrough is more than happy then to sit down with a teacher. If there are targeted concerns or reasons, things that we're looking for when we go in for a particular teacher, then we would schedule a time to talk face to face. But most walkthroughs are just that, getting a feel for, gauging overall trends in instruction. So they will get that feedback, and then sitting down face to face sort of depends upon the situation.
Okay. Last question. Does the school know that the IRTs are coming?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If we come in at the request of administrators, then oftentimes they'll let their teachers know, and you'll see IRT members, they're going to be coming in and out of classrooms doing walkthroughs. And our teachers are very much used to that at this point. Our brand new teachers, we tell them from day one, expect to see lots of people in and out of your classrooms, and it's there for support. We're there to help you and be the support that you need. So sometimes they know, and sometimes they, we as the IRT, we're always out there, very out there to teachers that we're coming through, we're here as a support, these are the things that we're looking for. And part of the purpose of this document and so that teachers have it and teachers know this is what we should be seeing. So it's very clear to them as well what the expectations are
Okay, thank you.
instructionally.
I'm trying to figure out how to structure this question, but it really comes down to, is this information work with the teacher's evaluation, or is it a separate piece of project that you do? I'm trying to
It
figure out-
depends on who is doing the walkthroughs. If a principal or an assistant principal are doing walkthroughs, they can use the walkthroughs that they do as pieces of data. So that a teacher's evaluations aren't based solely on a 30, to 45-minute visit as a formal observation. This gives them information over the course of the year. Sometimes administrators will invite IRT in to help a teacher who may be struggling. And then we'll help that teacher to identify things on which they can work so that when the principal or assistant principal is formally evaluating them or formally observing them, then they're able to meet the expectations.
So that's kind of an ongoing evaluation instead of doing once a year or every 6 months or so.
Yes, exactly.
That's good, because that's beneficial to the teacher.
We hope so.
To use a term from Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Grant's world, how do we go about hardwiring this? How do we make sure that this is being done across the system and that every teacher at least gets one or two walkthroughs? Is that the responsibility of the building principal? Is it the responsibility of, Mr. Fox?
Ultimately,
Mr.
Drescher.
Who is?
Mr. Drescher. Ultimately, it is the responsibility of the principals and assistant principals to make sure that all of their teachers are being observed, whether it's formally or informally in the form of a walkthrough. So it's ultimately their responsibility. We make sure as an IRT, we, within the first month of school, make sure that we have gone in to see all of our new teachers. So we have done a walkthrough and used this consistent form for every single new teacher. We will go into identified groups of teachers, so whether it is a particular grade level or content area, or a particular school building, we'll go through, usually at the request of administrators, but on our own as well to get an overall feel for our core instruction and what it looks like across the division. And when we put the information into that Google form, we can generate reports from anyone who is entering data into using this walkthrough form, using that Google form. Then we can pull up data across the division for what we're seeing in regard to one of the most common ones that we work with teachers year 0 to year 30 is active student engagement and active student responding. So we can pull up the data. How much of that are we seeing happening in our classrooms? We can sort that data by elementary, middle, high. We can sort that by individual school. We can sort it by grade level at a particular school. So we're able then to look at that data in lots of different ways to see what support we can give to our teachers instructionally.
Thank you.
Any other
This
questions?
does target behavior and everything.
Yes, it does. It targets, classroom management is a huge part of that, which all targets, essentially, good core instruction will take care of many of the other concerns that come up as far as talking about behavior or talking about attendance or, many of those things are all wrapped up just in plain old good instruction.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Box.
My very first thought is I should have volunteered to go first, and I will try not to repeat too much of what Ms. Rusil had to say. I do have to say, though, that for 20 years, we've been doing walkthroughs, at least my entire career. We go back to something called data in a day, where we would do walkthroughs one time, just to sort of gauge the health of the entire program. At Warren County High School, they have continued this process where we emulate the healthcare profession, at least the Grey's Anatomy version of it, where they do rounds. And you have several people going in, so it's not just the word or the viewpoint of one person. So one of the very important things is that we've developed over the course of the last few months is look-fors. So if we're talking about a respectful, positive relationship being evident, we have several things that we have developed in common to say, yes, that relationship is there, or the teacher maintains a brisk pace. We've developed look-fors so that if I'm in the classroom, or Mrs. Rudisil is in the classroom, or one of our teacher leaders in the classroom, we are sharing a common language, because that was something that we were missing prior to this process. Wanted to quickly thank Justin Maffei publicly. He has typed and retyped based on the suggestion of several people, this Google form, which will collect the evidence. Again, as we're collecting evidence and Google makes this possible, we are looking at individual classrooms, but we're also looking at the health of our overall instructional program, so that when it comes time for professional development, we have solid evidence of things that can be helpful to our division or to individual schools. In addition, of course, the feedback is given to each individual teacher. We have developed a process that we're asking everyone to use. An instructional resource member or a principal could go into an individual classroom, but we've also developed a process for teams to go into classrooms. So a team could consist of 2 or 3 members, administrator, assistant principal, dean of students, and preferably a teacher leader within the building, someone that's respected throughout the faculty. They take a paper copy and they do their checklist, they talk. Then after everyone has taken their notes individually, they come back to a classroom and they meet and they debrief and they discuss what they saw in the classroom. And what I've learned by going through with Donna Boyce and Mr. Lee from Skyline High School is that debriefing is what has led to such rich discussion about what good instruction looks like, or what good management, or the pace of instruction. So we're hoping, no, we're not hoping, because I know better than this, these discussions are improving the leadership in our buildings, and we're developing teacher leaders. And additionally, as teacher leaders go back to their faculties, when they see the things that have been happening in their building, it's not just that an administrator has seen something in the building. It's not just that an instructional resource team member has come into the building and has seen something. Now you have a respected leader within the building who has also observed the same behaviors or the same instructional strategies or the same lack of instructional strategies. So when professional development comes about, we have allies in the trenches with us. This final debrief, then we go to the Google form, which collects and collates all the evidence for us. And that would be a wonderful way to find out, Mr. Wells, whether or not every person in the division has been seen. And I hope I didn't repeat myself too much, but I wonder if you have any questions about the process itself. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Virginia Tiered Systems of Support Attendance, Mrs. Lee.
All right. Thank you so much for letting me come and share what we've worked for a year and a half on. It kind of all is represented in this one visual, so that's why I wanted to share it with you today. But as we, as a committee, got together and looked at our attendance data, we decided that that was an area that we wanted to focus on. As part of the Attendance and Behavior Subcommittee, we have representatives from each school. Those representatives are the administrators from the school, there are teacher representatives, there are truancy case managers are represented on these, as well as some of the central office and guidance counselors as well. So this subcommittee got together and looked at the attendance data in our school system to use the data to make the decisions that we're going to make on the interventions that we're going to use. So in that process, the first thing that we wanted to look at was identifying students and determining whether they were a Tier 1 student for attendance, a Tier 2, or a Tier 3. So we had to set the parameters of what it meant to be within Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So those parameters are on this visual. As you can see for Tier 1, those are students that have missed 5 to 9% of the school year, which equates to no more than 17 days. That goes, it's right in line with what the state has determined as Tier 1 for attendance. And then moving on to Tier 2, that is 10 to 19% of the school year, and that is 18 to 35 days missed. Once you do move into Tier 2, that's when you have become identified as being chronically absent. And then Tier 3, those are our students that are missing greater than 20% of the school year or greater than 35 days. So those are the parameters that we used to identify the students. We had to identify them first before we could figure out what interventions to apply. So in looking at our Tier 1, we developed several interventions that became countywide expectations. So these are things that we expect to be happening at all of our schools. And the first is that we are monitoring that student data. That's the big piece of this. We have to make sure that we are continuing to monitor our students individually so that we can target them appropriately. Then we also looked at making sure that we continue to recognize good attendance and then also that improved attendance. So we want to make sure that our students are being recognized at each school. That part of it is dependent upon what the school. We ask that they initiate a incentive plan so that the students and staff and parents know exactly what incentives are being offered and what recognition is being given for students that have good attendance. Next is a big one that I am very proud of. I think that for our county, developing that and making that an expectation is greeting students at the door. That was a countywide expectation that's been established. It is a research-based intervention that shows that it not only improves student attendance by creating that welcoming environment for the student to enter into, it also improves behavior. It gets them on task quicker, so it has that impact on instruction as well. So that was one of those interventions that kind of hit all of the targets that we were looking at. And that was actually a training that we developed for our schools to use so that they're training their staff so that the practice is being implemented with fidelity. There are some fidelity markers to say what greeting students at the door should look like. And so we were wanting that to be the countywide expectation. And the training that we developed was used by the State Department at some of the VTS conferences around the state. To show that. And then the last is Challenge 5, and that is kind of a bombardment of awareness. We created some banners, I'm sure you've seen those around town, where we're encouraging that attendance from our students. We're challenging them to come to school and be absent no more than 5 days. So strive for less than 5. We want them to be at school, at least, like I said, no more than 5 days. So as you can see, those banners that are around town, that has that strive for less than 5. We also have posters in each of our schools. We have some flyers. Within the Challenge 5, we also have leaderboards outside each of our buildings at both the student drop-off for parents and then also the bus entrances, and that is an awareness of what the school's attendance data looks like, because we want our parents to be involved in that and understand that we do have an expectation for their students to come to school, and then if we're meeting that expectation or not. So those leaderboards are at each of our schools as well. So when you move on to level 2, and we're looking at the interventions for our students that have become chronically absent, even though we have laid that very effective foundation, sometimes that strong foundation of those Tier 1 interventions aren't enough to help our chronically absent students. They need a higher level of intervention, and that's when we identify them as Tier 2, we want to ensure that we're giving them something extra. And in that something extra, we determined that we wanted our schools to be meeting with the staff, be meeting with the parents and the students to develop a student success plan. Within that plan, we want to try to identify barriers that may be causing the student to not be coming to school so that we can provide assistance. If it's a transportation issue, if it's an alarm clock issue, if we can hopefully identify what that barrier may be, we can help assist in overcoming that barrier. It's also to increase the positive connections with the families and to motivate them to come to school. Within that, we've also created attendance buddies. Attendance buddies are an identified staff member within the school assigned to a student. Each school has identified their Tier 2 students. It is an expectation that we have for second semester that they have identified those students within Tier 2 and that they have assigned them an attendance buddy. And the role of the attendance buddy is to, at Tier 2, is to meet with the students on a weekly basis. A very brief meeting to see if they're at school. If they're at school, be excited that they're there, make sure it's very welcoming. If they're not at school, then we're going to make that contact at home. Again, very positive, seeing if we can, what we can do to assist to have them come in. So again, creating those positive connections with the family. When the student has moved on to be a Tier 3 student, we're using those same 2 interventions of that student success plan, as well as the attendance buddy. But at the Tier 2 level, we're doing that on a weekly basis, and at Tier 3, we're doing that on a daily basis. So each school has identified those Tier 3 students, and on a daily basis, they're having a check-in with their attendance buddy, which would, if the student is not at school, would result in a phone call home to the parents. In addition to those 2 Tier 3 interventions, for Tier 3, we also want to make sure that we're reviewing and revising that attendance plan. If what we've identified as hopefully support for the student isn't supporting them, we may need to revise it. We also may refer them to some community resources at that point, if that could help as well. So that's the work that our committee took about 1.5 years to get through. We feel like we're pretty finished with the attendance piece. And we're actually seeing some positive data coming out of this. We do have fidelity checks for each of these interventions. So we're making sure that they're being implemented the way that the research shows makes them effective. And at some of our elementary schools, we had a report at our last meeting that their data is showing an improvement for their Tier 3 students. That I can't remember the exact data, but I want to say they were 99% within school for an entire month. So it was a big change. So we're seeing positive changes in the interventions as they're being implemented on a small basis. We're not necessarily seeing the large picture of attendance changing at this point, but we are seeing those small steps with the data. So
You don't have any data to share with us tonight?
specific on the interventions or?
The different schools and the attendance records and what percentage of the students are in Tier 1, 2, and 3?
I did not have that, but Ms. Shepherd did.
So this is 2016-17 data, so our last year's data. Our attendance, chronic absenteeism is now going to be a factor in accreditation. So and the accreditation factor is students who, if you are above 25%, if you have students that are chronically absent more than 25%, then you're going to be accredited with conditions automatically. So that goes into effect either this coming school year, 18-19, or 19-20, depending on if it's beneficial to you or not. So if it's beneficial to you to have the 17, 18 standards, then that's what they'll use. But if it's beneficial to the school to have the 19, 20 standards, then that's what they'll use for accreditation. So, so with that being said, we have school divisions. Our elementary schools are all within 10 to 17% who chronically absent students. So 1 out of 10 students is absent more than 20% of the school year, which is a large number of days. When you look at that, what is that? Do you have that up there? Greater than 35 days. Our middle school last year was 15% of students were chronically absent. And then our high schools last year, both of them were above 25% chronically absent. So 1 in 4 students missed more than, missed more than 18 days.
And what are some of those barriers that have been identified?
Some of the,
Most common ones.
common barriers, transportation is one of them.
School?
Yeah, students miss the bus and they have no other way to get to school. Elementary as well, students not getting out of bed on time, sickness, illness. Those are some of the common reasons why students are chronically absent. So, and we've also found that the interventions that we selected for attendance also work with behavior. So, for example, greeting students at the door. Dina can talk about this a little better than I can, but that when you greet students at the door, you're actually getting a pulse on the student as they walk in the door. So, you know, if Melody comes in and she's all excited, you know she's going to have a good day. So that's great. But if Melody comes in a little somber, that's not usually what Melody does. So we're going to go and we're going to ask her, you know, we'll take a second later and say, hey, is everything all right? And you may find out that Melody hasn't had breakfast. And the last meal she had was at lunch the day before. So, you know, so that you're going to find things out about students by greeting them at the door. So that's our, you know, our tier 1 strategy. Another tier 1 strategy is good core instruction. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that we've been working through as well. Having good core instruction will make students want to come to school and will also help with the behavior piece as well. Mentoring the students, having the absentee buddies. That student now has an adult in the building that can actually they can go to if they have an issue or concern, or you know they just want to talk. So those are things that are going to help attendance and behavior. So as we start working on behavior, which we have over the last couple of meetings, we will identify additional strategies to help with behavior. But these attendance strategies are also going to help with our behavior too.
Great, thanks.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I knew we had an issue at the high schools with chronic
Yes.
absenteeism.
Yeah, so, and hopefully that data is going to change, you know, this year. Second semester is when we're implementing our supports for Tier 2 and Tier 3, but our Tier 1 supports have been in place all year, and the greet students at the door was actually implemented fourth quarter last year. So.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just have a observation or comment, and I guess it's kind of to Mrs. Lee. I will say the greeting of the students, and I can only speak for one school at A.S. Rhodes, and I apologize, I don't know the young lady's name outside, but I watch her. She speaks to every child, not just, how are you today, but she goes, how are you, Miss Shepherd? Yeah, I mean, she knows every child by name. I don't know how many students are there, but pretty impressive to me. In the evening, when those children are picked up, Miss Shepherd's going to pick up her little one. She sees the car coming. She's already on the walkie-talkie going, you know, Jody and Mary, your mom's here. She knows the parent by the car they drive. So that connection is huge.
It is
I mean, you can watch these little kids. They just light up when she talks to them. You know, it's great. And then I'd also say the high school, I think that's the children that aren't there, they're old enough to get there on their own for the most point. You take grade school children, they're kind of dependent on a parent at that age. You know, you're looking at kindergarten, first, second, third grade. I think it lies deeper than it's just the child doesn't want to go, because a lot of the children I speak to, that's a bright part of their day. And it's kind of like an employee. An engaged employee is a good employee. Same thing with a student. The more they're engaged, the better they are. And most little ones want to please. They want to do the right thing. So I think you're headed in the right direction. I like the little boards. I mean, to me, it's a big deal. When I see them, I look at it every time I walk over there. So, somehow, some way, we just got to keep moving the way we're moving, and I think we'll be fine. But it takes time to fix anything, and unfortunately, time sometimes not on our side, but keep moving forward. So I thank you. I mean, I think it's the right direction. That's all I've got. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent report.
Good evening. I hope everyone had a good Christmas time and New Year's and break. I know that was much needed by a lot of folks, and we're headed back to school tomorrow with our young people. Unfortunately, we're going back to some very frigid temperatures. So in taking a look at what is going to be happening in the morning, actually the next 2 mornings, wind chills will be below 0, and there's actually a potential for some winter precipitation, depending on if something moves. I don't think when I last checked at 6 o'clock, it hadn't moved yet, so I'm looking at Mr. Mitchell back there to let me know that too. We're going to utilize a 2-hour delay opening tomorrow and on Friday. We sent that message out to staff and parents this afternoon around 1 o'clock, so everybody is aware of that. There is going to be very little difference in the wind chills and temperatures in that 2 hours. However, it does give us a bit more light for our earliest students as they start out, just getting them acclimated back. It also does give us a bit of time, if needed, to deal with any bus or building issues that could occur. We've had a couple of building issues just as we've come back these 2 days with staff. We think we're all ready to go. We've got the buildings are warm and ready to go, but when you get down to -12, -15 wind chills, and that pipe maybe just was right on the edge, we want to make sure we're ready for our kids. And I hope parents appreciate the fact that we're giving them a little extra time to make sure everybody's bundled up, and hope everybody takes that seriously, because it's a dangerously cold temperature at that point. So, sorry we're starting off the school year on such a cold note. Each meeting, I try to go over some of the I've been supported comments that our students write. We've started this about a year ago, a little over a year ago. The idea of gratitude and saying thank you is a higher level emotional skill. The higher level emotional skills, if we practice those, we can learn them, and we're doing that with our students. And so I just want to read several. This is from Shawnee. And Shawnee is thanking Mrs. Budd and Mr. Holmes for helping me be better at the subject I've always had a hard time with. So that's very nice of her to thank that. Morgan is thanking Mr. Magashak. And Morgan is thankful for teaching me the basics of automotive and being a cool teacher. So we got a young lady in automotive, which is great. Got Jason. He's thanking Mr. Clark. Thank you for helping me with good enough not being good enough. I will always try my best, and I mean always. And then he says something about go Cowboys. I'm not sure I don't know who that went over with that. And then the final one is from Easton, and she says, I want to thank my mommy for helping with learning my sight words. She holds them up, and I tell her what they say. So it's always, I just think it's a neat example of we all need to practice gratitude. It makes the world a better place, and it certainly helps our children. So that's my report.
Thank you. School board reports, Mrs. McKeithron.
I as well want to hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Sears for speaking tonight. I appreciate that very much, and that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Wells?
I'll echo that and welcome everyone back to another semester, and hopefully the the second half of a very good year. I would also, Mr. Sears, it's the first time I've heard you speak or that particular, and I'm sure that our superintendent will bring the report from the state and some of the other information to us at a work session or where we can speak about it so that we can address some of your concerns. Mr. Mitchell, is the app with the temperatures and that kind of thing, is the app up and working so that folks can track their buses?
Probably 2 months out.
Okay. So I won't recommend that you go look for the app. Yeah, you can look.
It's not going to be there. Okay.
That's all I have.
Mr. Williams?
All I have is Mr. Wells has covered everything I wanted to speak on tonight, so welcome to 2018.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen?
Yep, Happy New Year. It's going to be a great one. I look forward to working with the rest of the board and all of our employees and the superintendent on achieving some objectives that we have for 2018 and in making some improvements. We can get a lot more accomplished.
Yes, thank you. And I also just wish everyone a healthy and happy new year. Hopefully it'll be even better than last year. Action agenda. Approval of 2018 school board meeting calendar. Mr. Drescher.
Thank you. Policy file BCA requires the time, place, and dates of regular school board meetings to be set at the annual organizational meeting. According to policy file CD-E, meetings of the Warren County School Board will be held the first Wednesday of each month beginning at 7 p.m. and the third Wednesday of each month beginning at 5 p.m., except during July, August, December, when meetings are scheduled only for the first Wednesday of the month. The attached proposed schedule follows this guidance with the following exceptions. The meeting normally scheduled for Wednesday, November 21st has been moved to Tuesday, November 20th, 2018 due to the Thanksgiving holiday break. The July meeting has been moved to the second Wednesday in July, July 11th, due to the Independence Day falling on the first Wednesday. And the second meeting in August, Wednesday, August 15th, has been scheduled to handle any unexpected or necessary actions, updates, reports related to the start of the new school year earlier that week. And we have the attached meeting calendar, and we just need to make an approval so we can utilize that calendar.
Madam Chairman, I move that the proposed 2018 school board meeting calendar be approved as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Acceptance of donation, Mr. Drescher.
Okay. There has been a person in our community that has donated a piano. The donation of a piano to Rusty Jerry's Elementary School by Pamela McGinnis. We recommend that you accept that with gratitude.
Did she get tired of playing?
Apparently, she's learned all she can.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. I move the donation of a piano to Rusty Jeffries Elementary School by Pamela McInnes be accepted with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. I'm sure they'll enjoy having that piano. I see a head nodding there. Approval of resolution authorizing payment of bills in emergency situations and in months with only one school board meeting. Mr. Valentine.
Good evening. This is a resolution that each organizational meeting in January we come and ask you to pass. And basically, the Code of Virginia and also school board policy allows us, with the school board approval, that special warrants or checks, as we commonly refer to them as, be approved and authorized prior to school board approval in certain circumstances, provided there's a procedure and also a resolution, which we're asking you to adopt tonight. And throughout the school year, there are circumstances where it is either advisable or maybe necessary to issue a payment prior to the next school board meeting. These type of circumstances may include such thing as the payment of utility bills, debt service payments, insurance bills, contractor payments, credit card bills, and maybe emergency parts and supplies that must be paid for at the time of delivery. In these cases, a delay in payment may incur additional costs or affect the normal operation of the school division. So what we do is ask that you allow us in those circumstances, and also in those months where you only meet once, to have that second payment of bills, and then we will present them to you at the next meeting, although after the fact, but for your review then, and certainly if you have any concerns, to be able to share those concerns at that time. So I'd be glad to answer any questions about it you might have, and if not, would respectfully ask that you adopt this resolution.
I think we've always done this in the past. A motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the resolution authorizing payment of bills in emergency situations and in months with only one school board meeting be adopted as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Approval of resolution authorizing payment of compensation. Mr. Valentine.
Well, this is similar, but this, instead of paying vendors or businesses that the school system does business with, this would be to allow payment of employees. And again, if there is a resolution, school board policy, and the Code of Virginia allows this to happen, and it would allow for the payment of all employees and school bus operators that are under written contract, and it would also allow for the payment of all other employees whose rate of pay has been established by you in the salary scales that you adopt each year, and for whom certified timesheets or other evidence of the services performed have been received. So if an employee is a part-time employee, if we have a timesheet at an approved pay rate and it's been approved by their supervisor, then those employees would also be paid or could be paid at the next pay date, which may be prior to your meeting and your approval of those bills. So we would, again, if you have any questions, but would ask that you adopt this resolution so that we can pay our employees in a timely manner, which is very important to them.
Yeah, we don't want to mess with that paycheck. Is there a motion?
Make a motion. Madam Chair, I move that the resolution authorizing payment of compensation be adopted as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval to create 2 new 8-hour bus driver positions from 4 existing 4.5-hour bus driver positions. Mr. Mitchell, that's a mouthful.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good.
Warm?
Absolutely.
I think the air conditioner's on here. I keep feeling.
I propped the door open. I wanted y'all to know what it felt like in the morning. What we're trying to do here is, I think, is pretty straightforward. We have 2, or actually 4 bus driver positions that are 4.5-hour positions. And what we're trying to do is combine those 4 and make 2 8-hour positions. I don't want to use the term full-time because for us, 4.5 hours is full-time for a bus driver, so it's a little convoluted. I mean, what that'll do is give us the flexibility to manipulate those folks into time slots that better serve us. For example, we have the day shuttles right now that are running, serving the VOTEX. We're running 3 of those right now. I would anticipate in the coming years probably 2 more. One of them being dedicated to special needs transportation. That is a growing piece for us during the day as well. So this combination of this will let us use those folks not just as substitutes for AM and PM runs, but if we need assistance in dispatching, if we have somebody who's out, they can kind of fill all different slots for us. But right now, we can't currently just take a bus driver and pluck them into a dispatch position. So this would allow us the opportunity to do that.
Do you have bus drivers, do you have 4 bus drivers that are interested in?
We only need 2. In essence, right now, we only have 3 that would be able to do it because most of our drivers are currently driving AM and PM routes. So right now, we'd be looking to our folks that are currently driving day shuttle positions because they're not contractually obligated to drive an AM route or a PM route. So those folks would then, if they would accept that position, that would allow them to be a substitute for the AM route and PM route. It'd also allow them to help us with dispatching duties or whatever else. The big piece, I keep going back to the dispatching, it's a struggle for us, and we cover about 11.5 to almost 12 hours a day with a staff of 3. You can imagine, like tomorrow morning, how many phone calls we'll get. And so you're trying to deal with that and dispatch 60 school buses and 60 bus drivers. And so just having somebody that would help us be able to answer that phone and help dispatch a bus would be a huge benefit to us.
Any questions? No? Okay, is there a motion? Madam Chair, I'll move approval be given to combine 4.5-hour bus driver positions, creating 2 8-hour bus driver positions.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Have you started all the buses today, so you know that they're going to be? Good, good. Surprise. First reading of 2018-19 Program of Studies. Mr. Fox.
One of the highlights of this position is that I'm given the opportunity to highlight and put a spotlight on the additions to the program of studies for the upcoming school year. So many thanks to Jane Baker, as she always seems to come up with several things. We'll start with the EMT Academy. We know EMTs provide basic emergency medical care and transportation for critical and emergent patients who access the emergency medical system. This is an opportunity, a one-year program that can lead to the completion of the first semester of an Associate of Applied Science degree in Emergency Medical Services at Lord Fairfax Community College. This will also prepare students for certification as a Virginia and/or a National Registry EMT. The opportunity is going to be given to 3 students at Warren County Public Schools. Applications are due February the 28th, 2018, and if this is approved. Also, this is a competitive process because there's only room for 3, and frankly, there are several young people that are interested in this already. We've done an interest survey. The selective process, the student must be 16. They must have passed their biology SOL, must maintain a 2.75 GPA, and they're also going to be required to take several college placement tests. But we feel this is a very exciting opportunity for students that are interested. And
Will that be
this,
taught at Blue Ridge Tech, or
it is not.
where will it be taught?
This is at Lord Fairfax. They'll share transportation with our Mountain Vista Governor School students, and they'll go over and share the same schedule. We're partnering with Clark County, Frederick County, and Winchester, I believe, are the 3. So there are 12 slots total, and we have 3.
Okay.
Another new proposed program is a class in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity affects, I know this so well, cybersecurity affects every individual, every organization in our nation. The course will focus on the evolving technological environment with an emphasis on securing personal, organizational, and national information. Students will be introduced to the principles of cybersecurity. They will explore emerging technologies, examine threats and how to protect against those threats, and investigate this diverse job prospect. It is a high-demand career, and we're very excited, should this be approved, to be able to offer this to our students. Our agriculture program, as you all know, is in its 2nd year. We have FFA programs at both of our schools, and they are wildly successful. So along with that, we want to offer a new class in agricultural plant systems. Students will develop competencies in each of the major areas of the plant systems career pathway, including botany, plant propagation, plant care, and selection. Students will learn agricultural mechanics that are applicable to plant systems, and as with all agricultural courses, students will be exposed to the principles of leadership and opportunities within student organizations such as FFA, and along with having supervised agricultural experiences. Another class that we're proposing that is contingent on the Claude A. Moore grant is a class in medical terminology. Medical terminology is designed to help students learn common medical terms essential for safe patient care. Topics are presented in logical order, beginning with each body system's anatomy and physiology and progressing through pathology. This includes laboratory tests, clinical procedures, therapeutic interventions, and pharmacology. And these are courses that are going to lead to a livelihood a well-paying livelihood when EMTs and being able to do cybersecurity. These children will walk out and still continue their education, but have a viable career and without necessarily having to go for a 4-year degree. Other things that we plan to offer at our schools, currently in our middle schools, we're able to offer Spanish as a credit, but because we've made plans to share resources between our high schools and our middle schools, we intend to be able to offer Latin at both Warren County Middle School and Skyline Middle School. We also, we are sure that we can offer French at Skyline Middle School, and based on, hopefully, based on numbers, we'll also be able to offer it at Warren County Middle School. So those will be more credit offerings for our 8th grade students. And one more change, something that we wanted to highlight, that beginning with next school year with the freshman class, students seeking a standard diploma are going to be scheduled to take modern world history instead of the ancient world history. And the rationale, the reason for this changes from that if a student only has to take one world history class, it makes sense that they would take a class that has more relevance to what's going on in their world. This would lead right into U.S. history. Modern world history talks about the things, the events that led up, that happened after World War I, that led to World War II. And of course, we're all still facing the repercussions of the events of World War II. And we think just that this will lead into something that the students can actually look in the headlines and say, I understand what's going on and have a history. Nothing against ancient world history. That was still going to be offered. And students that want that opportunity will have that opportunity in the 10th grade. So this is the first reading. We, as you can see, the program of studies, it is nearly finished. We have several page number changes to make based on last-minute additions to the program of studies. One of the other highlights is we've changed many of what were once called prerequisites to recommendations. For example, the medical terminology course, wonderful course, but if you haven't had some type of keyboarding, then you're probably not going to be very successful. So we've added recommendations instead of prerequisites. And finally, I also wanted to thank all the counselors and administrators who came out to make what is a fairly major overhaul to our program of studies, and especially to Leslie Detweiler, who made most of the typing changes. So this is the first reading. I would like to come back in 2 weeks and follow up with the second reading. Work session, yes.
Okay.
How many AP classes?
I'm sorry?
How many AP classes will we be able to offer this year?
How many AP are we offering this year?
I don't think it's changing. I don't
No.
know the number off the top of my head.
I don't know.
There's no additions.
No additions?
No additions.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
Discussions by school board. The Roy K. Boyles Wall of Recognition. Mr. Gresser.
The Roy K. Boyles Wall of Recognition was created in 2017 by the Warren County School Board. The inaugural inductee of the Roy K. Boyles Wall of Recognition was Roy K. Boyles. As a longstanding supporter and contributor to the education system in Warren County, Roy exemplified the criteria needed to be considered as a member of the Wall of Recognition. Nominees must have had a direct connection to the Warren County Public Schools. Examples of nominees are any Warren County Public School employee, school board member, other local or regional board members, a specific group that has had a dramatic influence or impact on Warren County Public Schools. If the nominee is an individual, they must have been out of their field of service for at least 5 years, and nominees need to have had a positive and lasting impact on the Warren County Public School system. The process that we agreed upon is that in January of each year, the Warren County School Board will accept nominees from any interested party. The school board, along with the superintendent, will review the nominees for selection. Selected nominees or appropriate family members will be notified of their selection, and they'll be recognized at the school board meeting in March or April. A plaque will be hung in the school board office commemorating their selection. The copy of the criteria and nomination form are attached. And just for your information, we'll be making sure all of our staff has this information. It'll be on our website. And then just word of mouth, either by yourselves or others of potential interested nominees. So once we get through January in the nomination process, then we'll set up a time to review those nominees.
Sounds good. Any further business? Okay, meeting adjourned.